We have more reaction now to charges being filed in the Rehtaeh Parsons case. My next guest has some legal insight into how police and Crown prosecutors approach this type of investigation. He's a lawyer for the Kids Internet Safety Alliance. Joining me now in the studio is David Butt. Thanks for being here, sir.
Great to be here.
Were you surprised to hear about these charges?
Not at all. It's the kind of situation where we knew there was an online element from the very beginning, and we also know that it involves a sexual assault. And therefore, it's not surprising to see that a distribution of a minor engaged in sexual activity result in child pornography charges.
Now, police said that they didn't have the evidence, I guess, to proceed. They didn't feel with sexual assault charges.
Yes, and sometimes identification can be a very problematic issue. An example that your viewers might get is that very often police will release videos of bank robberies. There's no doubt that a robbery has occurred, but the question, even though it's captured on video, is who's in the video and can we identify them? That may be the same problem that they're struggling with here, unable to identify a possible suspect and therefore cannot proceed with the sexual assault.
Now, Rehtaeh's parents have always said that these photos of her allegedly being attacked were widely circulated. So do you think it's likely we'll see more people charged?
That's certainly possible because, again, police investigative techniques are able to track, in some cases, the digital footprint, if I can put it that way, of the movement of images on the internet, and can sometimes trace it back to individuals responsible for circulating or distributing the images. So it is entirely possible that there could be more charges laid.
And we've seen cases like this go to court before.
Yes.
Do they often end in convictions?
Yes, the conviction rate is extremely high, and I'll add that, frankly, the guilty plea rate is quite high, because if the officers have done their investigative work properly, usually there's a very strong electronic connection between the perpetrator and the distribution of the images. And then, as long as the images meet the definition of child pornography, the case can be easily proven, and therefore the success rate is high.
So if we do indeed see convictions in this case, what are we likely to see as a punishment?
Jail time.
Jail time?
Yes.
Now, the two accused were under 18 at the time of the alleged crimes.
Yes.
So even as minors, they would still... And what would be the mandatory minimum?
Yeah, there are some mandatory minimums. They're measured in days, and for different offenses, it's a different number of days. So we're not talking about 5 years or 10 years or 2 years like we do with the firearms offenses. They're measured in days, so they're reduced. And of course, individuals would serve those in custodial facilities designed for young persons. So
in a youth jail, you had mentioned perhaps 14 days.
That could be, that's one possible option.
But a time period like that, how important is it that we are sitting here today talking about this and the fact that two young men are facing these charges?
I think it's critically important. You know, we have to divide child pornography internet offenses into two broad categories. There are the dangerous predators who prey online, adults typically going after explicit images of young children being violated and indeed hands-on abusing themselves. This is a very different category. It's teenage behavior. It's teenage behavior among peers. Now, it's completely unacceptable, but the dynamics are very different than the predator case. So education becomes a critical component for the teenage offending set. There has to be empathy building, there has to be awareness, there has to be understanding of just how destructive this behavior is, and particularly important for kids in high school to learn that because they're all using social media, so they need to use it responsibly in a way that doesn't victimize others.
Well, that's Rehtaeh felt over-victimized over and over and over again. So we have to teach kids that not only is it wrong to take photos of something happening, but to share them and then to victimize the victim.
Exactly right. And you know, it's really simple to say with hindsight, but it's a classic example of do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Do I want pictures of me circulating if I were the one in that? And of course, every reasonable kid would say no. So don't do it for anyone else.
And can we ever get those pictures off the internet? Are they ever really gone?
Impossible. Impossible. You know, they can be in so many places so quickly, and part of so many collections. There are people who collect child abuse images tragically, so that the likelihood of ever completely eradicating them is zero.
Let's talk about what it takes to investigate a case like this. Do police have the resources they need?
We're developing a body of great and in some cases world-leading expertise here in Canada to investigate internet to child abuse cases. So on the one hand, yes, we are developing some cutting-edge expertise. The problem is one of scale. The best estimates are that in any given day in Canada, there are 200,000 computers engaged in trading of horrific images of child abuse. Law enforcement can't begin to get on top of the problem of that magnitude right now with the resources they have. So while we have expertise, we're not nearly as broad in our reach as we need to be to address this problem.
Just this week, a new law came into effect in Nova Scotia that would allow me to sue the parents of someone who was bullying me, for example, if that bully indeed was a minor. What do you think of the law?
I think it's a step in the right direction. Certainly people can quibble about whether it's too great an infringement on freedom of expression, and those debates are important and will happen. But the general thrust of empowering victims to stand up for themselves, emphasizing that schools have a role to play and that parents of the potential abusers have a role to play is a real step forward.
David Butt, thank you so much for being with us today.
My pleasure.
Appreciate your input. David Butt is lawyer for the Kids Internet Safety Alliance.